If you're thinking about buying a new car right now, there's one question that keeps coming up over and over again. Should you go electric or stick with a hybrid? Because on the surface, EVs look like the obvious future. No gas, lower running costs, cleaner energy. But then you look at the price, and suddenly hybrids start making a lot more sense. So what's the truth? Which one actually saves you more money, not in theory, but in the real world, over 1 year, 2 years, and 3 years of ownership? That's exactly what we're breaking down in this video. No hype, no bias, just real numbers, real scenarios, and what actually makes sense depending on how you drive. Let's get into it. First, we need to set the ground rules, because comparing EVs and hybrids only works if we keep things fair. So for this breakdown, we're comparing two typical vehicles in the same category. A fully electric car, something like a Tesla Model 3 or Hyundai Ioniq 5, and a hybrid, like a Toyota Corolla hybrid or Honda Accord hybrid. Both are practical, daily use vehicles. Nothing extreme. Now here's the key difference right away: the upfront cost. On average, an EV is still more expensive than a hybrid. In most markets, you're looking at roughly a $5,000 to $10,000 price difference. That's important because no matter how much you save later, you have to make that money back first. So the real question becomes, how long does it take for an EV to catch up? Let's start with year 1. This is where things get interesting. Because in the first year, EVs usually lose. And it's not even close. Here's why. Yes, EVs are cheaper to run. Charging is significantly cheaper than fuel, especially if you charge at home. Let's say you drive around 15,000 kilometers a year. With a hybrid, you might spend around $1,200 to $1,500 on fuel annually. With an EV, that could drop to around $400 to $600 in electricity. So right away, you're saving maybe $800 to $1,000 per year. That sounds great. But then reality hits. You already paid thousands more upfront. Even after a full year of driving, you're still deep in the negative compared to a hybrid. And that's not even including things like higher insurance costs for EVs, potential charger installation at home, and in some cases, higher repair costs. So after year 1, hybrid wins. Easily. Lower upfront cost, still very fuel efficient, and no waiting to break even. Now let's move to year 2. This is where things start to shift, because now those EV savings begin to stack. Another year of lower charging costs. Another year without oil changes. Another year of fewer moving parts to maintain. EVs don't have engines, transmissions, or complex exhaust systems, so maintenance is naturally lower. Meanwhile, hybrids still have both an engine and an electric system. So while they're efficient, they're not maintenance-free. By the end of year 2, you might have saved around $1,500 to $2,000 total with an EV compared to a hybrid. But here's the problem: you're still not ahead. Because that initial price gap is still larger than your savings. So even after 2 years, hybrid is still the cheaper option overall. But the gap is shrinking. Now comes year 3. This is where things finally start getting close. By now, EV savings become more noticeable. Lower fuel costs over 3 years. Lower maintenance. Possible government incentives depending on your country. At this point, you might have saved around $2,500 to $3,500 total with an EV. And now, depending on the exact price difference when you bought the car, you're either close to breaking even or just starting to pull ahead. But, and this is important, that only happens under the right conditions, because EV savings are not guaranteed. They depend heavily on how you actually use the car. So let's talk about what really changes the outcome, because this is where most people get it wrong. First, how much you drive. If you drive a lot, EVs make more sense, because the more you drive, the more you save on fuel. If you're doing daily commutes, long distances, or constant city driving, EVs start paying themselves off faster. But if you barely drive, then those savings take much longer to add up. and suddenly that higher upfront cost becomes harder to justify. Second, where you charge. This one is huge. If you charge at home, especially overnight, EVs are very cheap to run. But if you rely on public fast chargers, that cost can jump significantly. In some cases, fast charging can be almost as expensive as fuel, which completely changes the math. So if you don't have easy access to home charging, a hybrid might actually be the smarter financial choice. Third, electricity versus fuel prices in your area. This varies a lot depending on where you live. In some places, electricity is cheap and fuel is expensive, perfect for EVs. In others, electricity costs are rising fast and fuel prices are more stable, so your local market matters more than people think. Fourth, resale value. This is the wild card. Hybrids, especially from brands like Toyota, have extremely strong resale value. They're proven, reliable, and in demand. EVs? Still evolving. Some hold value well. Others drop faster due to battery concerns, new tech upgrades, or market changes. So depending on which vehicle you choose, resale can either help you or hurt you. And finally, battery life and long-term confidence. This isn't a short-term cost, but it affects how people think. Modern EV batteries are designed to last many years, but replacing one is expensive. Hybrids also have batteries, but smaller and cheaper to replace. So psychologically and financially, some buyers still feel safer with hybrids, especially in the short term. So let's break it down clearly. After 1 year, hybrid is cheaper, no question. After 2 years, hybrid is still ahead, but EV is catching up. After 3 years, it depends. If you drive a lot, charge at home, and got a good deal, EV might finally start saving you money. But if not, hybrid is still the safer financial choice. So what should you actually choose? Here's the simple way to think about it. If you want the lowest cost right now, go hybrid. Lower price, lower risk, still very efficient. If you want long-term savings and you drive a lot, EV starts to make more sense. But only if your setup supports it. And if you're somewhere in the middle, honestly, hybrid is still the smartest, safe choice for most people today. Because here's the truth no one really says clearly. EVs are not automatically cheaper. They become cheaper over time if the conditions are right. But hybrids? They're already efficient from day one. No waiting, no break-even math, no guesswork. Now the good news is, this gap is shrinking every single year, and faster than most people realize. Just a few years ago, EVs were easily $10,000 to $15,000 more expensive than comparable hybrid or gas cars. Today, that difference has dropped closer to $4,000 and $1 to $8,000 in many cases, and sometimes even less with incentives. A big reason for that is battery cost. Over the past decade, battery prices have fallen by nearly 80 to 90%, and that trend is still continuing. Cheaper batteries directly mean cheaper EVs. At the same time, charging infrastructure is improving quickly. There are now millions of public charging points worldwide, and fast chargers can add up to 80% battery in around 20 to 30 minutes. It's not perfect yet, but it's a major step forward. On top of that, EVs are far more efficient. They convert around 70 to 90% of energy into movement, compared to just 20 to 40% in gas or hybrid vehicles. That's why they often cost less per kilometer to run. Maintenance is another advantage. EV owners can spend 30 to 50% less on maintenance over time since there are fewer moving parts, no oil changes, no exhaust systems, and fewer mechanical issues. Because of all this, the break-even point is getting shorter. What used to take 5 to 7 years can now take around 3 to 5 years for many drivers. But right now, we're still in a transition phase. EVs aren't automatically cheaper, they're potentially cheaper, depending on how you use them. That's why it comes down to your lifestyle. How much you drive, whether you can charge at home, and how long you keep the car will ultimately decide which option actually saves you more money.